Hello. Today I want to talk to you about a different aspect of coercive control. And we have to look at the fact that coercive control and the whole idea of domestic abuse is much larger than the idea of physical violence. And yet recently, for those of you who haven't known this, in April of this year, last year rather, 2019, the administration changed the federal definition of domestic abuse and domestic violence and put it back way decades back. So I just want to tell you the differences, and I'm going to read them to you. Previously, in the last administration, the definition was upgraded, so it included emotional abuse as well as physical abuse and sexual abuse and intimidation and financial abuse or economic abuse. These things were spelled out, that they were all part and parcel of domestic violence. So in April 2019, the administration put it back to this. The term domestic violence includes felony or misdemeanor crimes of violence committed by a current or former spouse or intimate partner of the victim, by a person with whom the victim shares a child in common, by a person who is cohabitating with or has cohabitated with the victim as a spouse or intimate partner, by a person similarly situated to a spouse of the victim under the domestic or family violence laws of the jurisdiction receiving monies. Now, what's the problem with this is that it defines domestic violence as crimes of violence. Now, to know why that's a problem, why it has been taken down and made just physical, this is the definition of crimes of violence currently in the United States. A crime of violence is an offense that has as an element the actual, attempted, or threatened use of physical force or any felony offense that involves a substantial risk of physical force. Whoa. It is so much more. Domestic violence, domestic abuse is so much more than physical violence, right? You know that if you're living it. Absolutely. So I wanted to just go through some of the things that it's really important to recognize that these things are part of domestic violence, domestic abuse. And the fact that it is way more than physical violence, and yet we have gone backwards in our definition of it, therefore gone backwards in the possibility of having any retribution when someone behaves in ways that are coercively controlling. Now, that's a political issue, and that will have to be dealt with by others. But for us, we really need to understand that coercive control, if it's happening to you, has particular elements. And I want to draw our attention to them today. So, of course, the first one is control, control, control. If you're with one of the toxic, relentlessly difficult people that I call hijackals, you will know it. I trademarked that term hijackals so that we wouldn't be running off to the internet, getting a psychological diagnosis and thinking that that's actual, because it doesn't really matter. If a person could be diagnosed as a narcissist, a borderline, a sociopath, a psychopath, any antisocial, it doesn't really matter, because whether or not it has a name is affecting you. And most people are not in a position to make a diagnosis of their partner or their parent or a sibling or their work partner. So it's important. So I trademarked the term hijackal. And my definition of that term is a hijackal is a person who hijacks a relationship for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenges it for power, status, and control. And they want to control everything, and they want to control it at all times. And that includes you and your children and the finances and the decisions and how you feel about yourself, because it is the ultimate power over situation. And as long as they can feel powerful and that they have you in their control, you will have minutes of Okay, relative peace. But as soon as they have any fear that they don't have any control anymore, they don't have power over you anymore, then you will feel their wrath. You will feel the control. You will feel the vigilance. You will feel what's going on. There's a physical change in what's going on. There's a physical energy that happens, and you'll perceive that. So, what are some of the aspects then of this domestic violence and the whole idea of coercive control? Well, one of them is definitely intimidation. They want you to be afraid of them. They want you to be afraid of consequences they could create. So that's where the threats come in. That's where the dirty looks come in. That's where they endeavor to control you by how they look at you or how they fall silent and refuse to speak to you. And it is intimidation, is like, I can do something to you. Always remember that. Whether that something to you is to refuse to speak to you, make money inaccessible to you, take the children away from you, alienate the children from you. They can do all kinds of things, and you know your particular hijackal and what kind of things are happening. So notice that. That is domestic abuse. Intimidation, threat, all of that thing that makes you feel small and them think that they are big and in control. And then there is that domination. It'll be my way or the highway. I am the arbiter of how this family will work, how this relationship will work. In fact, I will gaslight you and tell you how you work. You know, gaslighting is when somebody attempts to define your reality for you. They tell you how you think, feel, need, what you want, how you remember things. They decide who you are and how you are. And that is gaslighting, and don't let them do that to you. But that's a form of domination. Like, I will be the one who tells you how you are and who you are. And that's just sad. But it's one way that they do it, and all these things are sad. You know, another is isolation. You know, I think of a client that I had who married her husband, and he took her halfway around the world, put her in an apartment in an out of the way place while he went to work, refused to give her a car, cut her off from all her family, and there she was in a country that the language was not her first language, and that was the ultimate isolation. Now, it may be happening in more subtle forms for you. Maybe you are just not able to see certain people, or they make it so that something always seems to be wrong with your car, or they inadvertently take your car keys, or they tell you, I don't like you seeing that person. You've got to cut those people out. Or the big one is, I don't want to see your family anymore. I'm your family now. I will be your family. You don't need those other people anymore. And that is the ultimate isolation. Don't let it happen to you. I know it's not always easy to not let it happen to you because, you know, you have children, you need a house, you want a place to live, you're trying to make the relationship work. I understand all of those factors. I've been there. I understand. I've lived that. So not only do I have a doctorate in psychology, I had to figure it all out for myself. And that's why I spend my time helping other people, because it's hard. And when that isolation piece comes in, the whole idea is for you to not have anyone to tell what's happening to you and not have any support. So you have to turn to your captor. And that's what we call trauma bonding, that they're the only person to turn to. And so then you try and please them because they're all you have. And that's the whole idea behind isolation. And then there's the verbal abuse, the degradation. You know, in the beginning, you were the best thing that ever happened to them. You were miraculous. They couldn't believe their luck in finding you. You're the perfect person. They love everything that you do and say. And then slowly, over time, and they usually try and get you into a committed situation as quickly as possible by either marrying you, moving in with you, or having a baby on the way. And it doesn't matter whether that's a male or a female hijackal. those parameters will still happen. And then they want to do that as quickly as possible so they can stop pretending they are that lovely, warm, delightful, charming person. Then they can go back to having things their way, the domination, the control. So degradation becomes part of that. The sideways comments, the putting you down in front of people where they don't think you will have the jam to respond or stick up for yourself. They will find ways to make you wrong, to make you less than, to make you sound incapable, to diminish your capacities, to discount your ideas, to not want to hear what you have to say because who would? And then they tell you things like, you're just lucky I'm with you because nobody else would put up with you. And then sometimes you start believing them, and that's natural because you're a captive. They've isolated you. But these are all parts of coercive control. Another piece that is really big and why I do so many videos and have blogs and podcasts is that they will take economic control. They will control the finances. They will make it so that you don't have money to do the things that you need to do for yourself or your family, or to have the possibility of getting help to get away. And that is a big issue. I had one client whose husband gave her a little less money every month to manage the household. And every month she would have to go to family and friends and ask for more money. And he told her, I know you're bad with money. It's your bad management. And she would say, but you don't give me as much money as you used to. Well, you should be able to manage. And if you can't, you can have the embarrassment of asking family and friends. And what happens when you want to get away when there is economic abuse going on? You know, many times I will say to people, you may not be able to leave right now, but you need a plan. And part of that plan is having your own bank account, putting money into it, and slowly finding ways to add to that so that you can make that exit plan a reality. So very important. Then there's a little known piece of control, which is spiritual abuse. What hijackals will do is they will love to become a pillar of a spiritual community or religious community and to be seen as that, maybe even become a position of authority, maybe the pastor or the rabbi or the minister or the imam or any other kind of spiritual leader, or maybe just find a place of authority in the organization. And then what do? They use the tenets of the faith to make you wrong and small. You can never turn it on them because it's always going to be that you're the one who's wrong, right? Because that's the way hijackals go. But they will try to play on your guilt and play on your faith and play on your beliefs to say, if you loved me, you wouldn't be criticizing me. If you were living up to the tenets of our faith, you would not be doing these things. You would put up with me. You would do all of these things. And so it gets very, very confusing in the spiritual abuse field. I'm sure you can see that. But it's an important thing to recognize as part of coercive control. And then this whole thing of the sexual demands, right? Like they want attention when they want it. They want to reject you when they want it. When they want sex, they will demand that they have it. They will force you into having it. And it is a form of degradation. It's a form of control. It's a form of power over. It's abuse. It is domestic abuse. I have 3 hallmarks of healthy relationships, and all 3 have to be present if a relationship is going to be healthy. That's equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. And if both partners do not have that, the relationship is not a healthy one. And it's important to understand that. I'll make a video about those 3 things another time. But now we come to the big one. All aspects of what I've discussed are emotional abuse. And sometimes you don't want to believe that. You want to believe that deep down, they have your best interest at heart. Deep down, that person that you first fell in love with is the real person. But it isn't. Remember the beginning of this video? They were putting on a show to get power over you. And as soon as they felt they had the gotcha, they started to diminish in their affections and augment their demands. And so we come into this horrible place of emotional abuse. They're playing on your feelings. They're playing on your needs and wants. They're trying to convince you by gaslighting that what they see and what they want is what you want. They will put you down in front of your children and diminish you. They will tell your children lies about you. They will do smear campaigns of your family. They will cut you off from your family. They will tell your family, oh, he or she is going through something, but I got it. I got it. Don't you worry about them. No need to come over because I've got it. And they paint a really good picture of themselves. Remember, hijackals paint a public picture of perfection, and at home they create a private place of pain. So in that public picture of perfection, they're going to do a smear campaign to say, oh, poor dear, she or he is suffering, can't quite get it together. They have diminished capacity. What do you expect from a person like that? But I've got it. I've got it. And when you start to recognize that as emotional abuse, then you can realize why there's chronic stress, chronic anxiety. You begin to be physically ill. You're always looking over your shoulder. When you think of that person coming home, your shoulders go up to your earlobes and you get very, very concerned. And when you live in that chronic anxiety and that chronic stress, it can do so much damage to your physical health as well as your emotional health. So these are very, very important things to understand when we're thinking about coercive control. And I hope you are. Male or female, doesn't matter. Coercive control exists. There are an equal number of female and male hijackals. It's just they come in a little bit different varieties, but there are equal numbers of them. And they will exert this coercive control. So I hope this has helped you to see the elements that are involved, that domestic abuse is way more than crimes of violence, way more than physical harm. And I want that broadened definition to sit with you because I want you to see what's going on. Maybe it's going on in your life. Maybe it's going on in a friend's life. Maybe it's going on in your family somewhere. Maybe you just recognize that that's the family you grew up in. But that moment when you recognize and realize this is the moment you realize the implications and impacts it had on your life and how that may be coloring the relationships you have, and especially the relationship with yourself. I'm Dr. Roberta Shaler, and I am so glad that you have joined me for this, and I hope you'll stay tuned to this video series of hijackal hacks. There are many other videos for you here on YouTube, and always come to my podcasts. You'll find everything at transformingrelationship.com. I hope this has been helpful to you, and remember, take very good care of yourself because you matter. Talk soon.